Hey guys, welcome back to Student Connection. So glad that you stopped and check out this video. And so if you'll hang with us for a few minutes, we're going to kick off our new year. And I know you're saying, hey, it's February, the new year's already here. But if you remember, we took a break for the month of January with these videos, and we're picking back up. And so today I want to jump in with something that, as I was praying about what to talk about and what to really dig in about kicking off this new series of videos, and I was scrolling Facebook Saturday evening, and I have a friend that is an encourager. He's great at what he does. His name's Matt Hensley, and parents, you may have heard your students talk about him. Matt spoke at our winter retreat this year, and he spoke last year for us. And I've enjoyed getting to know Matt over the last couple of years, and just being able to know what's going on in his life, pray for him pray for me, and just doing life together. Even though he lives up around the Dallas area, and he is a associational missionary or a director of missions, whatever you might call it, for Collin County in that area. And one thing Matt does that I always find super encouraging is every Saturday night on social media, he makes a post to encourage pastors that will be preaching the next day. And even someone like me that doesn't preach every Sunday morning, but an encouragement to pastors nonetheless. And so he shared a post this past Saturday, which I thought was really good. And as I was reading it, I'm like, man, it just struck a chord with me and reminded me of one of my favorite passages of Scripture. Now, as he closed out his encouraging note to pastors, it says this. It says, pastors who are preaching, stick to the text, point them to Jesus, and trust him with the results. And it sounds good. It's quick, to the point, encouraging. And so you may be thinking, I'm not a pastor. What does this mean to me? Or how can I apply this to my walk with Jesus, to my family life, parents? And that's really where I want to come to today, speaking directly to parents, is this. When I read this, and I read this comment, it just struck a chord with me and reminded me of my favorite passage, Psalm 37. So I'm going to read just a few verses into that passage, and then and look at three places that I've really seen the Lord use this. But starting in Psalm 37, verse 1, do not get upset because of evildoers. Do not be envious of wrongdoers, for they will wither quickly like the grass and decay like the green plants. Trust in the Lord and do good. Live in the land and cultivate faithfulness. Delight yourself in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart. Commit your way to the Lord. Trust also in him, and he will do it. He will bring out your righteousness as the light and your judgment as the noonday. Rest in the Lord and wait patiently for him. Do not get upset because of one who is successful in his way. And so it just, as I read that Saturday night, it just struck a chord with me as a parent that, that's me a lot of the times. I want to follow the Lord, and I want to push my children to follow the Lord. But do I trust him? I say I trust him, and in everything that I strive to do, I say that I try to live that out with my life. But many times we lead our kids to try to make decisions that are the best for them, but we don't trust that God's in control. All right, let's look back at that passage real quick. In verse 3 of that passage, he starts off with trust in the Lord. Like, that's the command. Trust in the Lord and do good. Live in the land and cultivate faithfulness. And then a more familiar verse to everybody, and I share with our students, if you haven't seen this on like a cross-stitch pillow or something, then it's just one of those verses that's pretty common for that. Delight yourself in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart. A verse taken out of context a lot, but we have to look at it in the context of this passage. But then he goes in verse 5, commit your way to the Lord, trust also in him, and he will do it. And then verse 7, rest in the Lord and wait patiently for him. So what struck a chord with me, because I know I'm guilty of it, I think if we're honest parents, a lot of us are guilty of it. We want the best for our kids. We want them to excel in the classroom. We want them to excel in sports. We want our kids to have friends and be popular. And you can fill in the blank there of what you desire for your children. And some of those things will fit them and their personalities better than others. And so you want to do your best to help them in those things. If they're in the band, hey, I want to give them every opportunity to get better at this. I want to give them time to practice in the evenings. And even though it may sound like the worst noise ever now, I know in 4 or 5 years, man, it's going to be beautiful music. And so you may be telling yourself, I'm going to suffer through this because I know what the end result could be. And you encourage them through that. And you get them the best. What if they play a horn? You give them the best horn they could have for this. And you learn more about how that works. Or whether it's sports and they want to be a pitcher and you like, well, I need to get them lessons because I don't know anything about it, or they need this kind of cleat, or they need these certain sunglasses, whatever. And some of that stuff just helps make them feel better. It's not necessarily helping their game, but it's a way you're supporting them. And we are called to do that. As a friend of mine and Mary Martha's would say, we are called to be our children's biggest cheerleaders because they're in a world that's going to tear them down around every corner. And so we should do that. But for me, what sticks out and the biggest thing is trusting in the Lord and show that I'm trusting in Him. Verse 5 says, commit your way to the Lord. But it doesn't just stop there. Trust also in Him. And what the part about Matt's comment that stuck out to me is we need to be faithful in how we're living our life and what God's called us to do, and then trust that He is going to do the best for us. Similar on our part of how our kids might trust us in what we are trying to help them do and get better and support them, but we are to trust the Lord wholeheartedly. And rest in that trust. Not try to rush to make decisions. Because, again, we go back to those examples I just said. If our child is excelling in music, we want to provide them every opportunity, the best lessons, anything we can do to help them be a better musician. Or if they're a ball player, or if it's with school, we want to provide them with scholastic things. We want to provide them with the best opportunity to grow in their knowledge, so they can excel and get to the next level if that's what the Lord has for them, and get a scholarship to college. So those things, they're great to desire that for our children and to help support them with it. But on the side that we tend to struggle with is sitting back and, like verse 7 said, resting in the Lord, waiting patiently for Him, trusting in Him, showing our trust. And that's one thing our children don't see. If we're not careful, and that sounds harsh, but how we live our life as parents, they don't see us trusting in the Lord. They see us seeing a topic, worrying about it, doing whatever we can, especially dads, to fix the situation. What can I do to fix this situation? And sometimes we don't know. And that's where our trusting in the Lord happens. We tend to just quote verses like that and hold on to it when it's a dire need. Someone's sick, it may be cancer, it may be something else. Well, we got to just trust the Lord. Yes, but that trust doesn't change when everything's going right. So I want to encourage you, parents. I'm not saying this to get on you. I'm saying this to encourage you, is exercise your trust in the Lord this week. Let your children see that, whether they're 5 or they're about to move out and go to college. Let them see your trust in the Lord. Because if we've been faithful as parents to parent our children, to walk with them, to give them godly counsel from Scripture, then we shouldn't struggle with trusting in the Lord. So I encourage you and I pray that you would do that, because as parents, and this is not a dad specific or a mom specific thing, it's a parent thing, is we want the best for our little boys and girls, whether they're 2 or they're 22, and we're going to do whatever it takes for that best to happen. And so that's where trusting in the Lord for them, they will see that. They'll see us trust in the Lord. They will see the strength in our faith and one day reflect that, because ultimately we'll be reflecting Jesus. So I pray that you would do that. Pray, find a passage in the Bible that you can cling to. For me, like Psalm 37 is one of my absolute favorites that the Lord has used time and time again in my life. And every time I come back to it, I write the date down of when the Lord brings it to mind, right there in the Bible next to it. And it'll remind me of when the Lord used this passage in my life. So I pray this will be an encouragement to you, and exercise this week on trusting in the Lord.